Hello, YouTube. I'm Sean Connors, and welcome to our Week 1 Fantasy Football Show. I'm a few minutes early, but that's to iron out all the kinks. I've got a list of some questions I'm going to go through, but naturally, the whole program is going to be dictated to by your good selves and the questions that you may send in if you join us live. So there's a lot of unknowns here. So don't worry. In fact, we're a little early. We're going to just iron out some of the kinks. I'm just going to see if I can get up on here the video so I can answer them as they come in. It's all going to be very interesting. I hope it works. So far, so good. We'll see. Let's see what's coming in here. There we go. Nothing that I can see at the moment. So where we go. Anyway, let's go live. I was just trying to iron out some of the kinks, but I'll get going. So ramifications from Thursday night's football game. Obviously, you tend to get a lot of overreaction after a Thursday like that, but you've got to remember, if you've been around fantasy football long enough, you know two things. The first thing is week 1 games, particularly week 1, week 2, and often week 3, defenses tend to win out over offenses as offensive schemes tend to take a bit of time to gel. Remembering the old adage that there are always normally 2 or 3 moving parts to every play, except for defenses where effectively one man has to beat one man to get an advantage. So you find defenses start good. I thought Packers defense looked good from Thursday night, and the Bears defense is as advertised, no doubt about that. Offensively, the Bears were very poor, didn't use their weapons particularly well, and got themselves in some terrible, terrible game scripts. So don't read too much into it early doors. David Montgomery got a few touches. He was clearly the best back on the park, and I think most people will recognise that. So hang in there. He will. If they've got any sense, the coordinator will realise what they've got, and he'll get more and more touches. But it may take 2 or 3 weeks to iron out. So just bear with us. We now can clearly see Tarek Cohen has got a role. It's going to be more of a receiver kind of role, I think, is the way that they're going to mix him into the setup. And in these early couple of weeks, maybe Mike Davis has a role with the Bears backfield as it irons itself out, which is completely understandable. People are panicking a little bit over Aaron Jones. Don't be daft. This is week 1. He showed flashes there. This is a very tough defense to run against. A couple of leagues, I sat him before the game, and in one league I took a chance and put him in. I mean, it's a gamble you take with fantasy, but there's clearly a good player there. Certainly looks okay to me. The biggest take, I think, out of it was from the receiver front. Marcus Valdes-Scantling is everything we thought, advertised as the wide receiver 2 on this channel. And the good news is it looked like Geronimo Allison, who laid a duck egg, is going to be a bit of a non-factor. It's hard to work out exactly how that's going to play out longer term, but it is interesting news. I want to give a big shout out, actually, before moving on to a couple of other factors about the show, to a chap who asked for it, and you're going to get it, sir. Well done to you. Shout out to Mark Vella. Well done. Thank you for your input in some of the videos to myself and Alex. Very much appreciated, and we really do appreciate it. I'm just going to see what questions have started to come through, so thank you for sending them in, guys. It's really appreciated. Let's have a look at the live messages. Let's have a look. Should I stick with Hockenson or grab one of the below list? From Adam, Davies or a Rams tight? Davies or a Rams tight? And I think you stick. I think you stick with Hockenson week 1 if that's your situation that you're in, just to see how it plays out. I've kind of penned him in as a pack tight end for this year, to be honest with you, Adam. It's a great question, but let's be honest, it's going to take time for the rookie to work himself out. However, if you look at the game script, it isn't actually unfavourable, is it? I mean, if we look at what we've got this week, we've got, where are we? I was looking at this earlier, and I kind of colour-coded it to make it as easy as possible, because Detroit are playing the Cards, and I think that's a good matchup for the tight end. I think it's a pretty even game, and I think I could see game scripts where he gets opportunities to break up down the seam, and I think he's as good as any of those kind of tight ends. He's certainly worth a roll of the dice. I'll have a look at your questions again in a minute. I'm just going to go over to question 2 on my list just to cover a couple of things before I forget them. I want to quickly talk about the Antonio Brown fallout, actually. Funny enough, I think in somewhere, and I don't know where I put it, I made a bit of a jokey comment about Brown ending up at the Patriots. And it kind of smells a little fishy, as Al would say. It's all a bit too contrived. But that's where he is. He won't be playing this week, but he'll certainly be playing week 2. Then that's really hasn't actually helped things in the Patriots, has it? I mean, you've got Josh Gordon, you've got Julian Edelman, now you've got Brown. It's buried Harry in the depth chart, but then he was going to be out of commission for the first 6 weeks, which is probably just as well. At least he can learn behind them. And then we'll see how it shakes out. It's very good for the Patriots. Unfortunately, I'm sorry to say that if you're a Pats fan, well done to you. You know, again, you've got another really loaded team with a great schedule and a great opportunity to exploit the way it is. And I do think there's going to be some very favourable games for you now. So it'll just depend whether this guy can keep his head or not in that system. And it isn't an easy system to pick up, that's for sure. I think the biggest takeaways from it is that Terrell Williams, who was pointed out, I think it was either by Magic or Sniper, I apologise, whichever one it was that pointed him out earlier in the year, which we've latched onto here in the fan pub because of your recommendations. Certainly a big uptick for him now. Opportunity trumps everything. He's certainly got an opportunity now to put up some seriously good wide receiver one numbers. So well done if you've capitalised on him as a flyer. I've got him in one league. I was quite happy to get him actually in an auction league for $1, so that looks really good value. And I think the biggest downturn for the Raiders has got to be the young running back Jacobs, because wow, this is a serious problem now for him. Although week one matchup looks quite favourable. I mean, the Raiders play the Broncos, looks quite an interesting game, but the Broncos defence isn't bad. So I think there's going to be some ugly game scripts with this kid, and we're going to find out very quickly whether he can handle the load. So we'll see. I'm going to have a look at some of your questions that are coming in before I move on, because we have got a structured hour, and I'm going to keep it to that hour. Let's have a look at what we've got here. Okay, I don't want to miss anybody's question, so it's a little bit more difficult, but I'll try. If I miss your question, please rewrite it. I'm screwed if David Montgomery usage does not increase. Yeah, okay, that's a fair shout. But don't be worried. This is early doors. Don't be. I've taken lots of shares of him. Yes, it's a bit upsetting, but it's clearly the best back in that offense by a mile. The coordinators will look at this and are going to adjust. You saw him go down the seam for 29 yards. What's the guy capable of if you give him touches? At one point, he was 5 for 18, which was perfectly serviceable. I think he ended up on 6 for 18 or something really weird. They just didn't give him good game scripts, and the Bears were awful all night. So don't worry, it will improve, and I would not expect anything other than that snap count to keep increasing. It's got to, because he's too talented to keep him off the field. So seriously, don't worry about it. Let's take another question before I move on. Let's have a look at what we've got. Oh, good question. Yeah, sorry I forgot that. I'll add that in now actually about Waller, the tight end for the Raiders. Yeah, he gets a massive uptick. Thanks, Al. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Big uptick for him for this week ahead and for the foreseeable future. A lot of people had already picked him out in fantasy as a big, thank you for the question, a big uptick for this week. I see nothing but good things ahead for him. And I would actually elevate him a little bit higher than just an uptick, because I think, you know, when you're talking about packed tight ends, he's got a chance actually in this situation maybe to end up top 10. Sounds crazy now when you think about it. He could be in that fringe of top 10 tight ends this year. So great opportunity for him now. Let's have a little look at some of the other questions before I move on, because there were a few getting buried there and I wanted to pick them out. Corey Davis or Dante Pettis full PPR. Just see if I've missed anything else. Yeah, okay. Corey Davis or Dante Pettis full PPR. Thank you for the question. I think it's very close. I'm erring on the side of Dante Pettis. I think there's something about this guy in PPR that could be very surprising. It's a great favourable matchup week one actually. Both they're in a game where it could go any direction. 49ers playing the Bucks. It looks wide open. I can see a lot of usage of the air attack here from both teams. Are going to have to. The ground game, we're going to find out. I've heard that the 49ers are going with last year's rookie who failed, unfortunately, due to injury to break out. But we'll see how it plays out for the young man tonight. I'm looking forward to watching that game, and we'll see how it actually plays out for him. So the whole thing is going to be really interesting. But I think I would err on the side of him over the other, but it is really, really close, to be honest with you. So that's another good question. I will pick up on your questions. I'm just going to go on to my next thing I wanted to mention here. I've got Keeti Kuti mentioned. Very questionable for Monday Night Football. That's a worry if he's your last player up on your list. So always have a backup plan. Monday night player, big risk, 50-50 right now. I really would err on the side of caution. You've got a better plan, or don't have one, put one in play now, because those kind of question marks can leave you with a blank. And it also threw up a very interesting thing somebody pointed out to me that I hadn't realised it was doing psychologically, but it's a very good point. One worth mentioning in this programme, which is this, and thank you for those for watching, because we've got 15 watching, 11 thumbs up, and that's massive. So thank you very much for that. Weren't expecting that, because we didn't know what we were going to get. So thank you for that. In fact, it's increased to 17, so that's excellent. Yeah, so normally as well, little tip for you, Thursday night games, don't put players that you're playing in a Thursday night in your flex. Always put them in the main position because that gives you more opportunity later, if that makes sense. So rather than putting a running back in the flex spot because he's on a Thursday night, make sure they're in the key position so you've got flexibility going into the weekend should anything go wrong. Just a little tip, something I think I do psychologically without ever mentioning it. Just thought I'd throw that in here. Let's have a look at your questions. So we've got some more people joining us all the time, which is fantastic news. Christian Kirk or Miles Sanders full PPR. Well, I think we have to. I think week one we have to a little bit on the side of caution for Saunders because if you're talking about, are you talking about Miles? Are you talking about? Oh yeah, Miles. You're talking about the running back. I would err on the side of caution. They've already said tonight actually that it's going to be a committee there with the Eagles, so I don't think you can really go with it. But it's very very close. Christian Kirk's a bit of a big play specialist. So, he'll get a few shares. But I think in that interesting offense that Arizona are kind of building, it's in a good game, as we've already spoke about. I mean, they're in a perfect matchup, aren't they? Cards versus the Lions. There's opportunities for good, big plays all over the place. So I think I'm going to go with Christian Kirk on that. And I'm going to pick him out because I just clearly think he's probably the better of the two at the moment. I think that's going to change rapidly for Miles Sanders, but we'll see. We'll see how that plays out. Let's just take another question and then we'll take one of my notes. Let's have a little look. What do we got? Right, so drop, where are we here? Drop one, Sanders, Kirk, Edelman or Terrell Williams in standard. Well, I'm not dropping Sanders and I'm not dropping Edelman or Terrell Williams. I'd have to drop Kirk in standard. That's a great question there. Let me just see. I can't read them. I'm very sorry that the fine print on there. It looks like Jesse or Jessum. So apologies if I got it wrong. But I can clearly see your question. So that's the route I would go in that because I quite like the opportunity that Sanders got. I know he's coming back from injury, but we love him on the show. Edelman, New England, knows the playbook, so you have to stick with him week one. And Terrell Williams now has a big uptick. So the only person I would prepare to drop in standard would be Kirk because he's going to rely on the big plays, I think, at this stage of his career, although the matchup's favourable. So it's quite an interesting, good question. We'll come back to your questions in a moment. And I'm just going to take my next note, which was about Julio Jones. I don't know if you caught it, but Julio Jones signed his 3-year, $66 million contract, 3-year extension. Now, what this really means for fantasy football is fairly simple. He's a lock to play week one. He's a great player. It's good for him. It's great for you if you've got a dynasty team. That always makes you feel a bit more confident. You're very welcome. Thank you very much for the question. Thank you for tuning in. We'll be doing this every single week about 10 to 5 for a full hour, giving you 10 minutes before the matches start to get yourself set up ready for your games. We'll take any fantasy questions you have. It can be anything at all. Vent away if you want. Anything you need, we'll do it. We'll cover it here in the show. And we'll be doing this for the full 16 weeks to give you everything we can deep into the season and just have a bit of fun with fantasy football. And hopefully the fortunes smile with you and things look good. So anyway, Julio Jones, he signed his contract. Jordan Reed, the tight end, is not expected to play week one, but we've been kind of talking about that on the podcast, to be honest with you, for a couple of weeks. Al's been hinting at that. He probably won't play week one. He tried to trade him to me. Damn swine. Let's see your questions. He ain't tried to trade him for me. Scum, I say, scum. You're very welcome. Yeah, we've covered that. Let's have a look at this. Wallet is not 40% owned in Yahoo leagues. Get him now. I just tried, but he is owned. Yeah, that's a very good point. From Martin. Now there's some excuse me there, I don't know what you meant, but it's a great point. Thank you, Martin. Brilliant bit of insight there. And if you're in a Yahoo league only owned by 40% of leagues, that's pretty scary. That's pretty bad. So great piece of advice. Thank you for that. Another question here comes through from Jordan. Great question, Jordan. Kyler Murray or Russell Wilson instead? I'm sticking to Russell Wilson all day long until we see what Kyler Murray can do. We are excited to see him on this show, what he's capable of doing, but as of yet, we haven't seen the man perform. So we have to be a little bit cautious and a little bit safe. So if you've got the choice, you put Russell Wilson in. He's a top 5 perennial quarterback in and around the fringes of it. He's capable of any kind of performance any week until we see more of Kyler Murray. If we look at the matchups, and that's probably worth looking at, we'll start with, let's have a look at the Seahawks matchup. Seahawks are playing the Bengals. I think that gets pretty tasty. I've got them down for a very big win this week. And then if we look at the cards, we've already said are playing the Lions. It's a nice matchup, but I don't think anything compares to this because I just don't like the Bengals' situation offensively or defensively. I think they're a bit of a mess. I'm not saying the Lions are a lot better, but at least I feel there's some pieces there that are a bit better So, you know, that's really what it comes down to out of the two in my book. I'm just going to throw another piece in, then I'll come back and have a look at some of the questions that are clearly coming through. Thank you for those that are watching. For those that are new to the show, this will be every single week, 10 to 5 till 10 to 6, religiously every week. We will talk fantasy football here. We will take your questions and we will give you every bit of insight that we have got to take you as deep into the season as possible. Wish you luck throughout the fantasy season right into the final week. Anyway, Adrian Peterson is a healthy scratch for week 1, just in case you don't or do not know that. It's pretty much Darius Geis's job. That's pretty much the way it's going, just to add that in. So, you know, there we are. Geis will get his opportunity today. That's a game I'm going to be tuning in and have a little look at. I'm just curious to see how well he's recovered from the injuries. All reports from the inside the camp suggest he's done very well. We'll see. Very encouraging news. So if you picked up Darius Geis, take that plunge. We'll see how that plays out for you. I'm a bit more risk averse when it comes to players like this. I'm not sure of because of the injury. But we'll see how he plays out. He could well be a player we talk about next season in more detail. But let's see what happens. So anyway, let's look at your questions. Start or sit Diggs today? Well, they have said he's going to play. Now, the problem is there's a bit of a... I hate it when you hear from teams that the guy's got one kind of injury. Then you're told it's it's a leg injury. He's got some sort of issue there. Then it turns out to be something to do with the chest, the stomach issue. What kind of issue has he really got? And how healthy is he going to be for today's game? Is he going to be more of a decoy? I'm a little bit sceptical in this. And if you've got better options, I'm going to say swerve this week. And let's see whether that pans out to be a good piece of advice next week. You can come back and bite me if it's not. But I'm a little bit worried that when you've got a situation like this and they've really ummed and erred all the way right up to the starting line. So, good question. Let's see what else has come through on that live chat. And then we'll put some more information out there. Right, let's take this question here from Martin. Cortland Sutton, wide receiver, 2 numbers attainable. Technically they are, yeah. I mean, he's playing opposite Emmanuel Sanders. It is possible, but I think you have to really sort of... We didn't see much of him year 1. We know there's a talented player there. We do like him here on the show. The situation seems to have worked against him quite a lot. The first year was, quarterback movements all over the place and no stability there. Now you've got Flacco there, that helps, but I haven't seen enough of him yet to really be comfortable that he's a wide receiver too. I'm really seeing him more as a flex play in a bye week bad situation where you just haven't got anybody better to play in at the moment. So again, if you've got a better option, go with that and let's see how it plays out for him. Although again, the week 1 situation against the Raiders, frankly, anybody's capable of putting up some big points here now. I think the Raiders are a dumpster fire, frankly. I'm really concerned about that team. With Gruden at the helm and the various other problems that have been going on, who knows how bad it could get there this year. We're going to find out very quickly. I'll take another question. Let's have a little look at some of yours first before I move on to mine. Let's see. We've got, how do you feel about LeSean McCoy this season? RB2 flex or bench? Well, at the moment, they've said clearly that he's going to get somewhere between 15 and 20 snaps or 20 and 25 snaps, somewhere in that range. So that pretty much means he's going to split it. If you think averagely, most offensives get about 60 to 70 snaps a game, roughly. So he's getting about half of them, which means he's splitting the other load, presumably, primarily with, obviously, Damian Williams. I think it kind of cancels each other out. They may ride the hot hand. That's a problem. And it'll really depend on what happens, whether Darwin Thompson gets an opportunity. Again, if both these guys fall to one gets injured, this guy will get a big bump. So this is why we heard on the side of our program that he was the guy that you load onto a few teams, stash him, hold him, and see how it plays out. These first few weeks will be very telling. They've said LeSean McCoy looks very good in training. He knows the system. He knows Andy Reid's schemes very well. So I'm feeling, optimistic that it's going to be okay for them there because it is a high octane offense, but we don't know how this is going to play out. So again, if you've got better options, I'd go with that. But if you don't, then obviously, go for it. I mean, you've got nothing to lose really, but hopefully you've got a better option. Maybe he's your third running back and you can put him in the flex. That's worth a shot because sometimes those running backs can yield some good numbers, but we're going to have to see how it plays out. I'll take one of my own questions now and I'll come back and see what you guys have thrown me and girls. Melvin Gordon, again, the news coming through today is fairly straightforward. I have a problem with this because we know now that player power, we've been talking about the paradigm shift on this channel now for a few weeks since the Andrew Luck news. So if you haven't seen that video after this, please go and have a look at it, because it explains clearly about this paradigm shift, how player power now works, and how the playmakers don't have to follow the rules. So this timetable about, oh, you'd have to resit the whole year again and the eligibility, I don't even pay any attention to that. I think we have to see how this goes, and the player has some power. I think he's made a mistake holding out myself, but I get it, because he's trying to protect his future interests, i.e. what money he can earn on the next contract. So I think there's a lot of still to be decided here yet. So we'll see how this all plays out. Let's have a look at some of the questions that have come through. Thank you for those. Keep them coming and keep thumbing up the video. It's very, very, very appreciated. Thank you. I play you week 1 in a big money league. This is out. You should I play? Thanks. He's asking me for my own advice. Justin Jackson, Rashad Penny on Lashamal. Who do you fear the most? Well, thanks, Al. Thanks for throwing at me. I'm going to be honest with you, as I would be with anybody watching the show. I think it's Justin Jackson to be the one, because let's be honest, there's a clear role there for him. We know what he can do in standard. There's touchdown opportunities, and if we're being honest, and you know this as much as I do, I mean, let's look at who they're playing week 1. Chargers play the Colts. Yeah, I mean, Chargers, I think, can blow this one out. I mean, it's a lot to ask for Brissett to come in, carry the load. The running game's got to be on point. The defense has to show up. I'm not liking it. I think the Chargers could do a really good job. So I could see some touchdowns, which would be very horrible for me. But there you go. You asked the question, and you're going to get your piece of advice. So there you are. Well done. Thanks, Al. It's very appreciated. Glad you're watching as well, though. This is from Toby. Hi, Sean. I have both Edelman and Brown. It's early days, but I'm generally not a fan of having 2 wide receivers from the same team. If Tom Brady's throwing them the ball, who would you trade and for how much? Edelman and Brown. Well, I think you cash in right now on Brown. That's what I would do if I was you, Toby, because he's a hothead. We don't know what this guy's going to do from week to week. I still don't trust him. Cash in is going to get you a big value player. I mean, think about it. He was second round worthy, you know, as it was going in drafts just a couple of weeks back. So I think you can target a second round player. So that could be a very nice wide receiver there if you want to go swap a player, which you feel more safe about, and gets that player, you know, from that having 2 from the same team situation, which can happen. And that throws up a great question, actually, Toby. When these kind of things happen, it is worth making a trade. We know that Edelman does have some injury history to him, but I just think I'd rather keep him and see how it plays out, to be perfectly honest with you. It just seems to make more sense. So hopefully you like that. That's the kind of area I'd go. You've got some good running backs as well you could target with Brown now, second round value. I think you should be able to get it, and I can't see any reason why people wouldn't give you that value. So let's see a few more of your questions, or at least one more come through. How much, as in what caliber of player do you think I could attract for trading Edelman and Brown now, given the current situation? Well, hopefully I've covered that for you. The next question that's come through is pick 2, 0.5 PPR, Ridley, Kirk, and Hunter Renfrow. Well, it's very easy, actually. 0.5, you take Kirk and you take Ridley, and you take Ridley all day long. You take Kirk. Hunter Renfrow has not proved anything yet. I get the point that it's now an improved situation because of what's happened at the Raiders, but I'm not trusting this fully yet. So that's the route that I would go in a 0.5 PPR league. I hope that helps. Keep your questions coming. Thank you for those that are watching. Please like the video if you haven't already done so. If you're new to our channel, we need your subscriptions. They're very important to us. We are going to keep going in this format all the way through to week 16 for you. We will be here every week at this time to take these questions. Do not be afraid. No question is silly. No question is daft. And don't think for 1 minute that your thoughts or feedback or any ideas you have are not relevant, because people watching may take them and utilize what you've said, as we have done with some of the audience here. So, you know, others are watching too. So we're all analysts, and we're all trying to help each other get that edge in fantasy. Don't be afraid to do it. So yeah, I'm just going to come back to one of my questions now. Mike Evans cleared to play, in case you weren't aware. He's a full go. I think he'll be fine. So if you have him in your starting lineups, don't be afraid to drop him straight into the mix tonight. Good situation, I think. Bucks playing, so it should be good. Ezekiel Elliott, there's been a lot of mixed talk from the camp. I mean, about what the workload is going to be tonight. I just want to make this crystal clear. This is how I think it's going to play out, to be honest, week one. I think it's the obviously Giants play Dallas. So the reality is Dallas, in theory, it's a divisional game. They should be tough, but you would fancy, given the fact what's going on with the Giants, you would fancy Dallas to kind of run away with this one. I would expect them to be clear quite quickly in the game. He'll start, obviously. He's going to get a share of snaps, maybe see the first half out. If they built a comfortable lead, I don't expect him back for the second half. He may well have still earned you the points required in that small show. And the reason they may not play in the second half is simply because they've got to give him the game time and they don't want to rush him in because he hasn't played through camp, hasn't taken hits, hasn't worn the pads. Although he's practiced hard, he's in supreme shape. Nothing compares to that grind. And I know that playmakers rewrite the rules, but there is still a price to pay. So it's wise on Dallas to do that. There is the other scenario which could play out if it was a close game. Would they keep him in? Absolutely they would. You don't pay this money, that money, and then sit him. But the situation should be different, and I do expect him to get eased off probably by half-time, in my humble view. That's how I think it's going to play out. I'm going to cover another question and then talk a little bit about matchups. So I'll just give another question out. Eagles, I think we touched on it. So there was a question about Miles Sanders. I'll just mention it again for those that are new that joined us here. We're nearing the halfway point. Thank you for all your questions so far. Eagles are using multiple backs week one, so be prepared for it. Do not think for 1 minute that Miles Sanders is going to necessarily get a big load, or Jordan Howard, or Corey Clement, or whoever else, whichever other running back they're going to throw or rotate into the RPO plays. Just remember, it's a game where it is likely to be, everybody's going to get a bit of work. I think Miles Sanders eventually works his way into the starting lineup more full time, but it's going to take a few weeks. So be prepared, and you may have to ride your pine for a few weeks. Hopefully, you've got some options you can use, and once that snap count gets in his favour, hey, chocks away and off we go, and let's see what he's capable of doing. So don't worry. Let's see your questions. Let's have a look what's come through. Again, don't be afraid to send them in. Those questions are super, super useful. Is there any way I can sit Zeke given the possibility of low snap count at 25 from Elliott? No, I would absolutely not sit Zeke. He's capable of a touchdown in limited action. And who's to say that he doesn't go for a big workload? Let's say he's feeling good and they're saying, how you feeling? I'm feeling great. They may keep him in. So no, you don't sit a star like this. Never play them. See how it plays out, because it's more than capable. I mean, I'm only erring on the side of caution, just trying to be honest what I think they'll do. And I've got him in a couple of leagues. But I'm not frightened to roll him in week one, because he can give me a touchdown. He can give me 40, 50 yards. And that's relevant. It's fantasy relevant week one. And who knows what he could do. I mean, on the touches he's going to get. So do not sit him. You've got to roll the dice. It's a great question. Thanks for it, Elliot. And keep throwing the questions in, guys, because this is your fantasy show. It's your chance to make any last-minute adjustments that you want to make. Let me just... I'll quickly grab a drink, actually. Let's grab a drink, and then we'll look at some of the matchups. That's good. Needed that. British tea always does us a power of good over here. You probably don't know in America how important tea is to us, but it's everything, really. It's a bit like drinking hard liquor, except obviously it isn't actually hard liquor at all. It's just soft stuff. But we love it over here. No sugar, okay? Just so you're no diabetes for me. I can't do it. I have to be tip-top shape if we're going to do the show properly. Here we are then. Right, so we've got some matchups for today. Jags playing the Chiefs. I feel like the Chiefs should roll away with this one. It'll be an interesting game, purely because I'm interested to see what the Jags do at 2 points. The first one is defensively. I want to see how the Jags actually are this year. A couple of years ago, they were the best defense in the league. Have things improved for them? Have they improved enough? Can they do enough to slow down the Chiefs? What kind of situation is Patrick Mahomes in? And who really is the running back one there in the Chiefs offense? And for that matter, is Leonard Fournette back? Those are the kind of things that I'm going to be looking at from the Chiefs and the Jags game week one. I do expect the Chiefs to win, but it's week one fantasy football. Anything can happen. I'm just going to check to see if any questions have come through. I'm just going to keep going through those information. Thank you, Elliot. You're welcome. Any other question you have, please shoot away. That goes for anybody on the live feed. You're always welcome. That's what we're here for, is to answer those questions. Vikings playing the Falcons. I kind of quite fancy the Vikings here. I know that there'll be people who think the Falcons will do particularly well this week, but I think it's a good matchup. It's going to be close. I just fancy the Vikings. I think all the things are in place now. They've had a year to work together. Kirk Cousins is woefully underrated. You've got 2 great wide receivers, assuming Diggs is back. I'm looking forward to seeing what Cook can do. The Falcons really all rests on one factor. Can the running game work? Is Devontae Freeman all the way back? 2 years without really much fantasy relevance massively worries us here on the podcast. He's on our bus list. Let's see if he can prove us wrong. And let's see what happens week 1 for him. I think the question has come through, so I'm going to quickly go and have a look at it. Let's see what we've got. Cooper Cup, great question here. Thank you very, very much for the question. I think it's Drew. Cooper Cup or Sammy Watkins, half-point PPR. Great question. I never trust Sammy the Boot Watkins, but then again, we've got the Rams with a very mixed wide receiver core. So you've got Woods, you've got Cooks, and you've got Cup, and Cup's working his way back from an injury. So I suppose I've got to give it to the boot for the first week. I suppose I've got to err on the side of caution and give Sammy an uptick, because I suppose there are some unknowns about the Chiefs. It's a good question. Thank you for it. So just week 1, we'll have to see how Cup plays this week. I have in one league rolled him into the starting lineup. Cooper Cup. I'm pleased with the way he's recovered rehab this offseason. I'm feeling confident about it, but I always worry about re-injury. There will always be a couple of weeks where your mind is always about any time he gets hit, is he okay? I'm hoping he's fully back. I'm hoping he doesn't get any relapses. And I'm interested and excited to see what he was doing, because he was on a good lick last year on a very, very good pace. So we'll see. Game that's exciting me tonight, maybe one of the ones I'll definitely be looking to tune in on, is the Browns v the Titans. I'm looking forward to the Browns this week. I'm hoping the Browns can do exceptionally well. I've certainly got some pieces of their offense, and I certainly think they're on for a good game tonight. I don't fancy the Titans at all, but we'll see how it plays out in real world. Many bets are off. Jets play the Bills. That's wide open game. I'm excited to see what Devin Singletary can do. Obviously, Le'Veon Bell, having had a year out, is interesting. And can Sam Darnold take another step forward? Well, he's certainly entitled to. So we're going to see what happens there. And this year, we're going to see what Josh Allen's all about. This is a game that's winnable for both teams. It's an interesting game. So I've got it very even, and we'll see how it actually plays out. Let's see, a question has come through. So prefer to take your questions. So let's see what you've got. Flex spot, DJ Moore or Duke Johnson? What do you think? Do you think Duke will be a 3-down back? Well, it's possible. I don't like DJ Moore in the flex. I think I'd rather roll the dice with Duke Johnson, particularly if it was half point or full point PPR. I certainly am interested to see what he can do this year in that situation. I'm really concerned about the running game for Houston Texans. It does worry me a lot. I know that they've got Carlos Hyde there. Maybe he takes a bulk of the work, but we'll have to see how it actually plays out. It's a bit of a tricky one to judge. Again, it's another game that's going to have huge fantasy ramifications tonight, as we find a few truths out early doors about these teams. So great question. Thank you very much for it. Let's see what we've got. Another one did pop through. Matthew, thank you, Matthew. A lot of people are first-time tuners in here, that's for sure. Thank you for those guys. If you are a first-time tuner, there's 2 things we'd like you to do for us. Very important. I will take all questions. Please thumbs up. Please subscribe. It's important. We're here every week, but we need to know you're with us. Don't forget to click the bell. It all helps. We will do the full 16 weeks like this in a show every single week, right the way through to the end of your fantasy season. Then we'll be taking a break and coming back the next year with some really interesting things that we want to share with you. So anyway, we can't share them with you if you're not part of our subscription list. So please do come and join us. Another question from Matthew. Thank you, Matthew. Robbie Anderson or Miles Sanders Standard League. I love Miles Sanders. We really do like him, and we think he's woefully undervalued. But this is a close one, and it's a great question, Matthew. It's very, very close. If we look at the matchups, it also throws out how wide open this one is. The Broncos are playing the Raiders, so you've got to like him there. And then you mentioned about, let me just go back to your question. You mentioned about Robbie Anderson. The Jets are also got a good interesting situation. So they're playing the Bills. So, I mean, it's a wide open game this week. It could go either way. I'm just going to go to the veteran. I'm going to give him the edge. We'll see how that plays out after week 1. But if you've got that choice, you're in a great situation, to be honest with you. I think with the way the Raiders are falling apart, I think Broncos could be on for a great day. Emmanuel Sanders is well up for it. He's certainly been out for it all off season. He looks in supreme condition. I'm excited to welcome him back. And I'm really excited to see what he can do. There's been some more questions coming through. Let's have a little look. We click down. 25 minutes to go. 10 minutes after that before the game starts. So it's a very exciting night. Hi, Sean. Thank you, Mark. Half point PPI in the flex. Matt Breeder, Josh Gordon. Enjoy the season. Cheers, Mark. Really appreciated. And I'm going to go with Matt Breeder all the way. Back Al's man, right the way to the hill. I think he can definitely do a good job for you there over Josh Gordon. It's a bit more muddy now with you've got Edelman, you've got Brown. I don't really fancy it. Breeder really has a defined, carved out role for me. I quite fancy him, and I'm excited to see what he can do. He's always woefully undervalued, as Al says over there. So let's see how that actually plays out. Right, so where were we? We're looking at some of the games. Dolphins playing the Ravens. It should be a Ravens runaway fest, I think, to be perfectly honest with you. Thanks for the thumbs up, guys. I think the Ravens can have a great night here. Lamar Jackson could steamroller the Dolphins over tonight. I'm expecting a big game from Ingram. I'm excited to see what this offense can do, and it's a perfect testing ground for them week one. We're going to get a steer of the kind of way that the offense has developed over this last year and off season, because we know what they were about last year. It was Lamar Jackson's first year and he didn't play a full season, so they've had a bit of time to work on this. Let's see what they can do. He was very exciting pre-season. That one run he did, Lamar Jackson, very exciting. Just got to be careful. We've got to learn something important here. The Andrew Luck paradigm, you do not want to get hurt. They've got a good defense here. The Ravens always have a very top 5, sexy defense, always got great tradition for it. So their defense can always keep the offense fresh. So I'm excited to see what these guys can pull out of the bag tonight. Just going to go through one more and we'll see what other questions have come. We've got the Eagles playing the Redskins tonight. I'm excited to see the Eagles tonight over the Redskins. But I am interested to see how Darius Guice does for Redskins. The Eagles should have a great night ahead. It's interesting to see how this running back committee is going to play out. And it'll also be very interesting to see how this actually factors for Carson Wentz. So definitely intriguing. So let's have a look at some of your questions that are coming through. Thank you for the questions. We really appreciate it. And we also love the thumbs up. So thanks, guys. It's really brilliant. So thank you. We've got Pettis, Breeder, or Duke Johnson in my flex, people. I'm going Breeder all the way here, Simon. All the way. Just barrel in. It's one of Al's favourite guys. I'm not frightened to say it's worth taking this guy. He's woefully undervalued in a lot of leagues. He was undervalued in the DraftKings, as the guys beautifully highlighted out in the video here. If you're into all the DraftKings stuff and like to get a little bit of a profit or try and give yourself a profit, I think they've highlighted how undervalued he really, really is. So it's a lovely, lovely question. Thank you for that. I can see we've got some new subscribers. It's brilliant. Thank you, guys. We've got 23 minutes, and we're going to keep it exactly to 23 minutes. And then we'll finish with the final question. And that is it. Get on, watch the football, and come back and join us next week. We really appreciate you tuning in. But we still got a bit of time. Don't get afraid to get your questions in. I'm just covering off some of the games here. Looking forward to some of them. Panthers play the Rams. It's very even. I'm kind of interested to see how this plays out. There'll be a lot of talk about whether Gurley is fully back. Now, let's be honest. If you watch the channel, let me be honest. Have a look at my bold prediction 1. What is that all about? Well, it's about the fact that I believe that, you can make predictions where players will bust, and you can make predictions where you do see them wearing down if you follow the evidence. There's clues. I'm worried about Gurley, particularly over a few games. I'm not too concerned week 1 or 2, strangely. I think he'll do well. But we'll see how it plays out, how his knee takes a pounding with players really targeting him, and what happens with real proper contact and how he does. I really hope he is fully back. I'm a Rams fan. I want the best for him. He signed a huge contract, thank God he did, but I'm deeply, deeply concerned about that knee. And that is why we've been very much on the Darrell Henderson train all year. And we are just waiting for that train to leave that station. I can't wait, personally. I'm excited to see whether he does. And if he does leave the station, let's see what people make of it then, because you're going to really capitalise if you took some shares of him. I've taken shares everywhere I can. I hope I get it right. If I'm wrong, well, I pay the ultimate price in a number of leagues, but I didn't pay a huge premium for him, really. A few rookie picks or some quite later round pickups is definitely where the value lies. And as Al says, that's what you've got to go for. You've got to go for the value. So anyway, let's look at the Colts-Chargers game. Should be a cracker now for the Chargers, I feel. Chargers should steamroll this one over the Colts. But we'll see. Brissett is no mug. It'll be interesting to see what they can do. We've got to see how it all plays out for them. But without Andrew Luck there, very dangerous. I mean, they let a lot of sacks in. You've got to worry. I don't think they've improved enough for me. I'm deeply concerned about the Chargers. Have got a very good team and a very good defense. And, this could be a big night for Rivers. We'll see. See how that plays out. Let's see if we've got any more questions here. We have got 20 minutes left, just over, and counting down to the start of the season. Breeder or Duke Johnson in my flex 0.5. Another Simon question. I'm going, if you've got that choice, I'm taking Breeder all night long, okay? take Breeder. That is an absolute given here. He's just woefully undervalued. Okay, so jump in, do that, because you will not miss it. We've got about 18 people watching. I'm absolutely over the moon with that. Thank you guys for watching. This show is here every week. It's every week for you. Your questions we will take. Even if you miss the show and you just catch this video later and want to put a question on it, I'll make a note of your question for next week. But we really would appreciate if you could tune in, because that's the best way for us to interact with you as, you know, fellow fantasy enthusiasts. Because, you know, without you, we've got nothing, and we really appreciate you being here with us to enjoy the season. So, you know, please keep the questions coming. Anyway, I was talking about the Rams games. We covered that. We covered the Chargers, Colts. We got the Seahawks, Bengals. You got to fancy the Seahawks here. It's going to be a big night for the Seahawks, I feel, against the Bengals. I've got huge reservations against them this year. Again, another team seriously got problems. Is this another race to the bottom? Who's the biggest tank team of the year? What do you guys think? I'm really concerned about these guys. I can't see why teams won't stack 8 in the box against Mixon. That massively worries me. He's going to have to shoulder a huge load. Andy Dalton is hardly operating at full steam. AJ Green won't be back just yet. I mean, huge not back. This is just a mess. I don't like the defense. I'm seriously concerned. So, yeah, not great. I'll just see if I'll put one more in, and then we'll see if there are any more questions. Then I'll go to plan B of the questions that people have sent me just over the last couple of days, other stuff. Lions and Cardinals, wide open game, and Bucks and 49ers, wide open game. Nothing to choose between them. I'm kind of excited to see how they both play out. All fantasy assets there could be relevant. There's a lot to ask here. We're going to see David Johnson should have a big night. Lions, Kerryon Johnson, is he fully back from injury? Should be interesting. Very interested to see how they utilise the defenses and the team scripts here. Let's see how the Cards actually play tonight. Can the Bucks cause a bit of an upset against the 49ers? Will the 49ers show whether they're all the way back? It's going to be very, very interesting to see what happens. Got a question through. It looks like it's from my dear friend Al, but we'll just see if there's anything else before that. Let's have a look. Excuse me. Thank you, Al, for the question. It's George from Twitter. Thank you, George. Really appreciate that. Geis or Terrell Williams, PPR. Well, you can't trust Geis. Week 1, you can't do it. We've got no data to measure him on. They've said they're going to give him a load, but let's think about it for a minute. You know, the Redskins are playing the Eagles. That's not easy. That's not an easy team to give the baptism of fire to this kid. So I'm going to go Terrell Williams week 1 in a half-point PPR, and I'm going to just, that is the situation. That is the way I'm going to ride it, George. So hopefully you do something similar and take advantage of it, because I think it's the right thing to do. After week 1, we'll get a steer as to what is going to happen. I mean, you've got to think the game script really is going to be against Washington. I mean, you know, the Eagles should get a full 50, you know, high 50s to 60 offensive snaps. Can we say the same for Washington? I don't know. I really don't know about that. So that really worries me massively, to be perfectly honest with you. So let's see let's see how it actually plays out. But I'll go Terrell Williams in this one, and we'll see what occurs from there. One of my favourite questions of the week was this, which I thought was quite funny. Was this one is about Antonio Brown actually. Should he be benched week 2? It's a great question. No, I mean if he's going to start there and they've got the confidence to start him, then you're probably going to get a steer throughout the week as to what they're going to do with him. What is he going to be on a reduced snap count? What are they going to do? He's probably going to have to play basic packages week 1, but it's a fantastic threesome, isn't it? Edelman, Brown, Josh, and then you've got N'Keal Harry to learn under the wings for the next 6 to 8 weeks. Fascinating, really. How do they keep getting away with it? I don't know. So fascinating question. Anyway, let me see if you've got any more questions in. We have got 17 minutes to go on the live chat. We're here for you. Do not be afraid to send over your questions. As I say, if you've been watching all the way through, thank you very much for that. We certainly had a few people in the room with us. Thank you. Key here for me, guys, is do keep shooting your questions in. If there are any last-minute adjustments you want to make, then throw them in. If there's anything you thinking ahead, let us know. A little point, something Al pointed out, which I thought was absolutely excellent. Thank you for this question. I'll come to that in a minute, Dan. And I thank you for throwing it at me. You know why you've thrown that question. Thanks, Dan. Is the if you can grab them off the waiver wire, if you've got a league where it's possible. Dallas for the first 3 weeks of the season. If your streaming defenses, Al pointed this out last week. It's a good point. It is a last-minute adjustment. It's a good one to make if you can. Get that defense, roll them in. It could be a very, very good week. Dan, Our dear friend Dan has sent me through a fantastic question here. I'll answer this first before I take Toby's question. Thank you, Toby. Start Gurley or Henderson week 1. You've got to start Gurley week 1. You've got to do that. Even if I had the situation, I'd start Gurley week 1. What I'm going to be doing, though, of course, is watching how it plays out. I'm going to be watching how Darrell Henderson, let's see how many carries he actually gets, because they can't give Gurley the full load. They've already said he's not the bell cow. So let's see how it actually plays out. Let's see how many, over 2 or 3 weeks, how much of the snap count Darrell Henderson actually starts taking. Does he become the CJ Anderson to Gurley? And does Gurley start feeling the effects of the wear and tear of the NFL? And how quickly does he feel them? Or is there no impact on his ability? Is he just an Iron Man? And he could be, because he's come back from some serious injuries. So we'll see. I could be eating humble pie next year, and I'll be the first to say that. And I'll be putting out my apology video for Gurley week 1, that's for sure. So we'll see how it plays out for him, but long way to go. There are more questions coming in. Before I take those, I'll just finish off where we are for this season's matchups. We've got 3 games to cover off. Let's just cover those off very quick. We've got the Saints at the Texans. Good game, this one. Another classic. Could go either way, I think. I slightly edged towards the Saints myself, but it's a great game. Lot to look forward to. I'm just a little bit concerned about the Texans' running game. I'm wondering how that is going to be impacted after the Lamar Miller injury. At least he was steady, and that steadiness was one of the keys to their offense. We'll see how it plays out. And don't forget, very heavily sacked Deshaun Watson. If there is ever an analogy worth mentioning, Andrew Luck, Deshaun Watson, will their careers go a similar way? I hope not, but I hope they're going to keep adjusting. It looks like they've taken on board some of that with recent signings, the Texans. We'll see how it plays out. We've got the Patriots at the Steelers. Should be a big win for Patriots, I think. I know people will go, well, why won't the Steelers be relevant? I just think the Patriots have got all the components you need. They know how to play the Steelers. Everything is fitting really beautifully for them right now. I feel the Steelers have got some moving parts we're not actually sure about yet. And I think the Patriots' defence was a little bit undervalued last season. And not a lot of that has moved. And I just think they've improved. So we'll see how it plays out. The final game is Raiders Broncos. We've covered that off. And we know that it is going to be an interesting game for both teams. But I think the Broncos could edge it. Let's take your questions as we count down last 13 minutes and counting here tonight. And people are beginning to leave, which is completely understandable because they are gearing up, ready for the start of fantasy football season. So let's look at these questions. Who is your dark horse to cause a ripple and make the playoffs, as you often get one of those goes under the radar? Panthers a few years back when losing the Super Bowl. Texans under Matt Schaub, of all people. Good question, that, Toby. Wildcard dark horses. Oh, I don't know really if you can actually say there are any wildcard dark horses. I like Cleveland, but I like them in January the 1st. They're no longer a dark horse. I think most people really have worked out that there really should be, and their aspirations should be as deep a run as possible. Certainly wildcard, they're capable of that for this season, and anything less than that would be a real failing in my book for them. Although it is a tough schedule, so I think wildcard is doable, to be honest with you, but we'll have to see how it actually plays out. As for something sneaky further back, I mean, the Eagles have actually got a very good team, but they won't be a team that many people think in the NFC that can, win it outright. So, but I think they could sneak in via the wildcard route and do quite well. So they've certainly got all the pieces in play, and their schedule's quite kind actually. So those would be the two, but they're not really anything too extremely far out there. And there isn't any team that I like that's so woefully far back that I would pick out and say this is the one. Those are the two that I've been following, Cleveland particularly this year, but I've been following them since January the 1st. So I've been talking about them for a long time. So although people are now caught up with that, we've been talking about that since January. And that's the kind of information we would be sharing with people going forward. Myself and I have made some big predictions this year. A lot of it has already gone right. So for those that are new to the channel, maybe have never seen this before, try finding a podcaster if you can, who predicted Philip Lindsay 2 years ago. We're the only ones on our deep rookie flyer list. Check those videos out from 2 years ago. We've nailed some really big things last year, getting Fournette right as a bust. Le'Veon Bell, we predicted that Connor was the guy to go to last year, way before any of the news broke. So we're very proud of the track record on here. And, that's why hopefully you're tuning in and looking in and having a look at us. We really appreciate that. And thank you very much for all the feedback that you give us on a regular basis. And thank you for your views because, as I say, they always shape us. David from Twitter, Barber or Penny? I'm going to go on that one. I'm going to thank you for the Twitter question, David. We have got 10 minutes left, guys. 10 minutes left. I'm going to go with Barber over Penny this week because I think Carson is the clear number one. I think he'll have Barber will have a clear role there with the Bucks. I don't think Rojo really is anything to worry about. I think this is the year where we just see that is the end of that experiment and the wheels fall off. Thoughts of Monty Ball? I totally agree with you there. Thank you, Matthew. I couldn't have put it better myself. Thank you. You're absolutely right. So I'm not trusting him. I'll take Barber, to be perfectly honest with you. So yeah, let's have another look at some of your comments coming through. We've got greetings from China. Oh, thank you very much from China. Very much. Don't forget. Thank you. Don't be afraid to share with your friends there, Anthony. Do not be afraid to. I'll answer your questions in just a second. Subscribe. Really appreciate those. Thank you for watching. We'll be here next week. Don't forget that. It's critical. This next week, same time. I'll come on just a few minutes early, just make sure everything is set up right. And then we'll start shooting. We'll be here from 10 to right the way through for a full hour. Okay? Absolutely. And, pick up a last question or two and then wrap it up, ready for the game ahead tonight, guys. Let's see that question from Anthony. So I do apologise for repeating myself, but very important for those that are just tuning in. Stefan Diggs or Cooper Kupp, 0.5. Worried about Diggs' injury, thanks. Yeah, I also am a little worried. It is tricky because you've got two problems here. You've got Diggs is a more recent concern. I'm sure a couple of weeks' time he'll be fine. I'm a little bit worried that they've been talking about a leg injury. Then it's switched to sort of more an abdominal kind of thing, and now he's going to play. And then you've got Cooper Kupp working his way back from a very serious injury. It's a real between a rock and a hard place with this one. I'm going to go with Cooper Kupp purely because I'm really concerned about Diggs because it's really recent injury stuff. The only thing that can happen to Kupp is a relapse. We know he's fully back. We know he's been training. He's been throughout all the camp. But Diggs has had to kind of nurse this for the last couple of weeks. I'm a little bit concerned about that. So I'm going to go Kupp over that for week one. But it is very, very close. And it's one of them you could really live to regret it. But you've got to make these tough calls. And that's the way I'm going to go with it, to be honest, week one. You can always remind me as well. Week two, if it didn't go well, please tell me. If it did go well, don't be afraid to shout that out as well. I've got a question on a good one here, actually, on who do I start, Darren Waller or Austin Hooper? Oh, my God, what a great choice to have. And I'm never going to be able to pronounce your name, so I apologise there. I'll try. I think it's, let's have a look, McGovins or McGovins or something along those lines. I do apologise. The writing is so tiny on my screen, so I do apologise for that. I can read your question, but that's about all I can see. Yeah, no, they're both good. Week one, I think Waller gets an uptick for me. I prefer the script. I think they're going to have to throw a lot. So I think you look for safety valves. Tight end is often the safety valve. It's a great question. Why would you not want to roll with him week one? I mean, that seems to be the right thing to do. They're both close, but I think he probably offers you the bigger upside week one. And I think a lot of fantasy enthusiasts are getting quite excited about his opportunity now and rightly picked him out. I was a big fan of his, so I've got to give him a shout out. Here we go. Got a question here from Toby. Let's have a look at these questions as they come in. We'll try and answer them all, guys, so don't be frightened to throw the questions in. We'll try to get them all. We've got, do you think the Bills will play it safe week one with Frank Gore receiving the greater workload, or will Devin Singletary be thrown in early doors? Yeah, well, it's an interesting one because, I mean, they've said that they're going to kind of do a hot hand kind of approach to running back by committee. I never thought Devin Singletary would start the season as the number one. What we hoped would happen, which has happened, he's relevant. And is relevant now. So I think Gore may see slightly more carries week one, but if Devin Singletary breaks anything open, which he's more than capable of, if he looks explosive, catching balls from the backfield, how long is it going to take him to break into the lead job? Not long. I don't think it's going to take long, 2 or 3 weeks, and we're going to be looking back and thinking, wow, wasn't that a great piece of advice? Here, from the Fan Pub, predicting Devin Singletary. Back in January the 1st, as a few of you Americans know who were drafting with me then, they asked who I thought, and I picked out David Montgomery and Devin Singletary. And they looked at me with disgust and horror at Devin Singletary. He's too slow, he's too this. You're going to find out in winter just how electric this guy is, particularly in winter when it gets cold up there in Buffalo. And his jump cut is like a man's game. So be prepared. He's exciting. He's interesting. And he may be a very intriguing player this year. Potential for Rookie of the Year because people underrate him. And you never know. I mean, what odds would you get on that? What I've got on that back in January. So very interesting that. So thank you for the question. So go to start, but be ready to make the switch next week. So it could be brilliant. Oh, me get wins. Ah, right. Thank you for spelling it out for me. Thank you. Me get wins. Thank you very much. Really good to have you here. Please subscribe. Please like. Please follow the channel. We got lots coming up. And we're back here next week. That's the way I was learning too. Thanks. I'll check back next week. Really appreciate that. Thank you very much, Anthony. Really appreciate it. If you've got friends over there in China who are also American football fans, then please do point out the video to them. We really do appreciate everybody that we get that tunes into us. It massively helps us. I don't think you realise just how important it is to us over here. We are building, we believe we're going to try and build the biggest UK YouTube service for American football that we can here. We're never going to compete with you guys across the pond. Hey, but we can do something over here in the UK, and you can help us do that by subscribing, liking, thumbs up the videos, and giving us your questions. And put us against your best people, and let's see how we actually do. And that's the only way we'll all learn. What do I start? Who do I start? Justin Jackson. This is from McGowan's, or Latavius Murray. Justin Jackson. I'm going Justin Jackson. I got a sneaky feeling this is going to be an interesting day for him. I mean, Latavius Murray has value, but Justin Jackson has a carved-out role. Chargers have a good match, a good script week 1. It looks good. It looks interesting. And you know what I think most of all about this is the fact that, you just got to feel that he's going to get at least 50% of the touches. Okay, maybe Eckler edges it 55 or 60-40, but that may be enough, particularly in standard, for them to get a cheeky touchdown and 60, 70 yards, which will be very, very handy, particularly as he's probably not your starter. So brilliant, really, to be perfectly honest with you. Yeah, thank you for the updates, guys. We are going to run specifically to 1 hour on my iPad from the moment I start to the moment I finish every single week. But I'll try to always start a little bit early and leave a little bit at the end. So there'll always be a little leeway, a couple of minutes at the end. If there's a final question, I'll take those. I will answer them. Okay, so don't worry. I know we've only got 4 minutes on here, and I know we've got a little leeway. So we've probably got somewhere in the range of about 13, 40 minutes before kickoff. So we'll take all the questions we can, and we really appreciate you tuning in. So here we go. There are some more questions coming in. Let's have a look at them. Henry or Breeder 0.5 PPR? Great question. I'm still there. They really are pushing the Breeder question a lot tonight. He really has opened the door. I think if you haven't seen it, Al did, and the boys here behind the scenes, we've got some really good lads actually. Dan Albury, Mark behind the scenes helping us now. We put together some wonderful stuff at DFS, and got to give them a big shout out because they go unseen behind the scenes, to be honest with you. I'm sure Al will say the same. I did some great work here working with Al on this stuff, and Breeder is woefully undervalued. So I'm sticking all day long with Breeder this week. I'm not changing my mind till my mind is changed for me. I just think it's a great situation for him. I'm not a huge Henry fan. I've got to tell you that I'm deeply concerned about him. And that Titan matchup, oh, I don't like the look of that at all this week. So let's see how it plays out, to be honest with you. We are 3 minutes away from the 60 here. We still have a couple of minutes after that. So if you've got last minute questions, get them in. Lockett or Gordon? Great question here. I think that's Brandon. Brandon, who should I start Lockett or Gordon with? I'm going Lockett all day long. I think Seattle Seahawks is their go-to guy. He stayed healthy all last year. He's in great form this year. All accounts of him in the offseason, I mean, tremendous. He looks in the shape of his life. The year of staying healthy and playing an NFL season's got to put him in a good stead. I know he's had injuries before, but when you can prove it, he deserves to be the starter. So I'm giving him the nod this week until he proves differently. So that's the route I would go down. I've got a couple of other questions that I got personally asked during the week, and unless others come through, we've got a couple of minutes here and probably an extended 2 minutes as well. So maybe we've got 4 minutes left before we wrap it up this week. So thank you very much for all those watching. Please like, subscribe, please follow the channel. We really appreciate it, and we are very pleased to have you on board. Well, one of the questions I got this week was about Eckler. What are my thoughts of him now that the news about Gordon? Well, frankly, delighted. You're going to get 6 to 8 weeks of probably a 60-40 split in his favour, somewhere in that favour range. It's brilliant for PPR. He had a great standalone value last year. He scored 136 points in standard. Frankly, why can't he score 150 to 160? I think if you've got him in your teams, he's a great player to roll in. And he'll leave another role after and if should Gordon get back. And there's no guarantees of that as it currently stands. So don't be frightened to roll him into your lineup. That's all I'm going to say on that. Let's just see if you've got any final question. We're into the last minute. We've had a fabulous time here. No more questions at the moment. I'll just see if any others come through. You still have a tiny bit of time. I'm going to keep rolling for about 3 minutes and I'm wrapping it up. So I can't thank you enough for all those that have tuned in. This is your last few moments for questions. We've covered off a lot tonight. We've talked about every single matchup. We've gone through 10 key questions. If you haven't seen the video and you're just getting to the end of it, we've talked about fallout from Thursday's games. We've talked about Antonio Brown. We've talked about the fallout of that and the Raiders outfit. What will happen to Keedy Cootie? A bit of strategy advice for Thursday night games. If you haven't caught that, it's in the video early doors. Julio Jones contract extension. It's all in here tonight. Jordan Reed, Adrian Peterson, Melvin Gordon, Mike Evans, Ezekiel Elliott. How the Eagles are going to use their backfield in every single matchup in this show, all within exactly 60 minutes. Now, not bad, eh? So, last couple of minutes for you, as you're all there, still 15 of you watching, and I really appreciate that. It's massively important. Let me just check if there's any final question. I'm just trying to bring them up, so it may not come up, but we'll see. I'll just check in the last couple of moments. Oh, nothing coming up. Nope. Nope, got no more questions on there that I can see. Okay, well, there we are. That is the end. Oh, no, hold on. Is there any more questions? No, there's no more. So unless there's no more questions, ladies and gentlemen, we have had our 60 minutes. Really appreciate you tuning in. From me, Sean Connors of the Fan Pub, thank you very much for watching. We'll see you next week on week 2's show. If any breaking news happens during the week, we'll try to cover it as well with a late video in the evening for you. Maybe a live video we shoot, but we'll be back next week, week 2. Good luck for your fantasy season. Let's hope our bold predictions land. And I wish you all the very best in your league select, except if you're out and you're playing me week 1. Expect a loss. Good luck to the rest of you, and I'll see you next week. Thanks for watching.